screen.
I don't see us.
Hello.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Cradle News Roundup, coming to you live. Your one-stop shop for all news West Asia, as you know us. My name is Esteban Carrillo. I am the news editor for the Cradle, and as usual, I'm joined by my friends and colleagues, content creator and writer for the Cradle, Karim Shami, and columnist and editor for the Cradle, Sharmin Narwani. And well, as we start, we want to thank Betsy Rose for their very generous super chat. Thank you so much. And this also gives me a pause to, the opportunity to, of course, remind you, first of all, hit that like button. It is so important. It's really, really important that as soon as you arrive, as soon as you get here, please make sure to hit that like button to get this video out to more viewers. And of course, subscribe to our channel. Check out our memberships here on the YouTube. But of course, please, in the description below, you can find the link to our Patreon page, where for as little as $5 a month, you can become a direct supporter of the Cradle. Please support independent journalism. Please help us maintain this platform afloat. It's, we love reading your comments after every podcast or, in our content on social media. And everyone's always going about how important spaces such as these are. So please help us. If it's, within your means, consider helping us. And thank you to everyone who's already decided to become a Patreon. We keep getting every day, a few more. We have a year-end goal of 5,000 Patreons. Please keep that in mind. Many things to discuss today, as usual, never out of lack for topics, but there's been some recent developments, some new movements on the ground in Lebanon, where, of course, Karim is currently at. Karim, why don't you walk us through some of the most recent developments that have happened over there?
Yeah, so yesterday at night around 1:30, the Israelis started to try to invade Lebanon from Khiyam and from Hula and from other places. And there was clashes that lasted around 3.5 hours between Hezbollah and the Israelis. Hezbollah, in a statement, they said that they targeted three Merkava tanks, Israeli Merkava tanks, and they confirmed that two of them were directly hit, and they saw fires, and there's a video of that. It's far away, but I will put it now. And currently Hezbollah is saying that the Israelis are in Khiyam, Mu'taqal Khiyam, which translates to Khiyam prison, which was a prison that the Israelis established, and Lebanese spies and mercenaries operated it. It was used during the occupation of south of Lebanon from the 80s till the early 2000s to imprison people in Lebanon that are against the Israelis. So currently there's still ongoing clashes in that area. Regarding previous information, we knew that 40,000 soldiers from the Israeli army were called to the north, and also the Israeli army said the number will reach 100,000 because they called also their reserves. So the official statement from the Israeli army, they didn't say invasion, but they said operation. As the Americans said regarding Iran, officially what's happening in Iran to the United States is an operation, is not a war, and the same applies to Lebanon. So they are playing on the words and on the narrative, and what's on the ground is completely different. Also, the Hezbollah, since yesterday, didn't stop firing missiles. Till now, Hezbollah claimed responsibility of 26 operations inside Lebanon, fighting the Israelis, and on the border, on the borders between Lebanon and occupied Palestine. Also, now we have a super chat. Hope you are all right. Hope you are all right. Okay. I waited all the day to hear from you. Thank you very much, and we also very happy once we go online. Although sometimes it's exhausting, like today. So that's what's happening. Now I will try to put a map what's happening, and I will try to share a video of yesterday's Hezbollah hits on Merkava. I don't know if you have any comment, Sharmin or Esteban.
No, maybe
all-
we can also give some background as to Hezbollah's hit on radar systems in Israel.
Yeah. Yeah, so the radar system today also we have a new footage of the direct hit that Hezbollah did yesterday. Also, I will share it on the screen. Let me 1 minute. Office, no, yes, it's here. So, still, the Israelis said that this is a communication, satellite communication from Israel to the satellites, of course. But till now, there is no military explanation of this target, what it will lead to. For instance, is it used for early missile attacks, sirens, or is it only a communication hub? We still don't know. But here is the footage that was released today from an Israeli dashcam.
Did they kill the guy who released it?
Well, I don't know. So that's it. We have to look on the right. You see the satellites here. Sorry, not satellite. The
Raiders,
radars and the.
satellite dishes.
This is the yes, and this is the hit.
Whoa.
So it was a direct hit. This hit was 165 kilometers away from the Lebanese border.
Put down the video, please, Karim, because we can very easily get banned for showing this kind of
Karim,
stuff.
I'm sending you a tweet in the group. See if that's worth putting up too. It's referring, I think, to the same incident. Go ahead.
So this also comes, while Karima gets that video on screen, and that we really do need to be careful with some of these videos because the YouTube algorithm is always looking out to ban channels such as this. That's why we also need your support. Hit that like button; it really matters. It's been reported earlier today by in Israeli media that internally the discussion is that even if the war on Iran ends, Israel is still planning to have a long campaign against Lebanon. Which I guess essentially means this war in particular is going to continue to happen.
There we go. What are we looking at?
That's the hub, but before it was hit.
Okay.
You sent it to me, Sharmeen.
Yeah. No. I'm asking what. There was another visual in the tweet. I don't remember what it was.
There's an arrow, Karim. Hit the next one.
Yeah. Yeah, this is after. That's from inside. Yeah, we put this video yesterday.
Yeah, this is the aftermath. This is the aftermath of the attack. Another development today in regards to Lebanon and this, I guess, alliance against Hezbollah is a call between Joseph Aoun, president of Lebanon, and the self-appointed president of Syria, former ISIS commander Ahmad al-Shara, who said that who vowed absolute support to disarm the Lebanese resistance in Lebanon. I mean, what do you make of all of this, Karim? Because it kind of feels like the next front of this war, the next stage of this war is already taking shape in between, the Israelis saying we will continue with the war in Lebanon, even if the war in Iran stops. And now Shara coming in and saying, we got your back. We got your back to disarm Hezbollah.
Look, I don't think. Look, Sharia is a puppet, is a criminal puppet, and we are used to this in our region. I don't think Sharia can do anything without the green light of Turkey. He will not take such a decision without the green light of Turkey. We have to monitor the Turkish role in this war. Till now, it's vague. We know that yesterday Trump asked directly Erdogan to enter the war, and he said, okay, you have very nice speeches, but I want to see your missiles, indicating or pushing Turkey to be part of the current war. So first we have to know that the Syrians now, they are very weak and they can't enter a war from one front because the Iraqis will not let them enter, for instance, to Lebanon and without intervening in the in the east. But of course, Hezbollah is focusing now on the Israelis, and I don't think it's good for Hezbollah for the Syrians to do anything. And what happened yesterday is that Sana, which is the official media connected to the Syrian government, they said that Hezbollah throw some projectiles into the Syrian land, but they failed to announce that prior to that, the Israelis made a landing inside Syria, and they entered the borders into Lebanon, and
From Syria.
from Syria, and they also they had a vehicle ready, and many people are saying from Syria because it's easier for them to get it from Syria than like airlift it from Israel to Syria and then drive it into Lebanon. The Syrians failed to acknowledge that, as if this didn't happen, and they blamed Hezbollah. And we know the main point of the so-called Syrian revolution is to end Bashar al-Assad, which they succeeded in, and to end the presence of the Iranians in Syria, which is they succeeded in, and to end Hezbollah, which they failed to do. And we know that they took control of Syria, of course, because Turkey and I don't know what Russian and Turkey did. Of course, they didn't do it alone. And the reason they did it because of the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, and of course to the agreement that was signed between the Lebanese government and the Israelis to end the war, which indicated the weakness of Hezbollah back then, and they took this advantage. So we have to keep an eye on them also. And for me, if I was Hezbollah or in the government or whatever, I will use every diplomacy that I have to stop or prevent clashes between these gangs and Hezbollah at the meantime.
The sort of old unipolar allies, they're going to throw all their old tricks into every scenario. They're just going to keep chaos humming. They, divide and rule options, propaganda. It has reached new heights in Lebanon, things we've never heard before. It's a dangerous time all around. The one thing that's keeping things together so far is this Iran war. It's kept Iran in the lead, meaning leading the narratives and leading, I guess the battlefield in many ways, because the Israelis and Americans, everything they've done before. It's Iran's moves that everyone's looking at, and Iran, because it holds the control over the Strait of Hormuz, it's driving this whole scenario. Would Iran stop when Lebanon is getting invaded? That's also a question that occurs to me. Just something to add to what you were saying, Karim. I read today somewhere, information is just going like weird, right? You don't even remember where you read it or how and what context, but I read that the Iraqi resistance had said if Hezbollah, if the Syrians try to attack or impede Hezbollah in any way, the Iraqi resistance will take the entire province of Deir ez-Zor in eastern Syria. Did you see this?
Yeah, but even if they have the capability, it's not the time, Sharmeen, for me. The focus should be on the Americans and the Israelis, because don't forget that these people are very dangerous, not because of they have weapons. These people have maybe 1,000 now ready to go inside civilians under this structure and bomb themselves, which is the main or the most damage that they can do in our societies.
Yes, but it's not like necessarily like a full-fledged war will happen between Syria and Iraq. It just simply means that these jihadi troops who will be entering Lebanon to attack Hezbollah will have to be drawn back from that theater. Do you see what I mean? So a lot of people will use different levers and exert pressure where they can. This is one such example. It's not like the Iraqi resistance is going to stop targeting American and Israeli targets in Iraq. But you have to realize, I mean, during the Gaza genocide, when we were talking about the potential of Iraqi resistance entering the unity of France, we were talking about maybe 1 million Iraqis putting themselves up for this. Do you know what I mean? It's not insignificant, is what I'm saying. It could be a game changer throughout the region. And it could also show people who's boss in Iraq. I mean, there's many things we don't know. Let's just put the balls in there, identify what these are, and then who knows what'll happen with it. One other option with Trump now vacillating and obviously showing panic is the possibility, even though it may not seem very likely right this moment, but the possibility that the U.S. itself will withdraw from the war. Okay, if Iran doesn't agree to a ceasefire, the U.S. may just say, we withdraw, understanding that that means from the Gulf states as well, because they just don't want anything to do with it. And for those who think that they wouldn't dump their Israeli ally just like that, they did that with Yemen. The U.S. just unilaterally seized its bombing campaign of Yemen and left it to the Israelis. People asked, were you leaving Israel? Well, it's their problem, that kind of thing. And not to say that Israel will be all alone, because of course the arms running and into Israel would continue with the Americans, but would give the Americans an opportunity to focus on bolstering Israel's security and ammunition, which isn't altogether bad, because Israel could even take 12 days of it in June.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like almost every scenario we look at now, short of a complete, black swan, some new weapon, some new something that changes the dynamics, that in almost every scenario, the Axis and Iran have more cards to play. Because we haven't even stopped, there's been no action by the Yemenis, who were by far the most active member of the active resistance during the Gaza genocide, right? If they acted, for instance, to block the Bab al-Mandab, route to the Red Sea, that would stop a lot more shipping, going on around the world. Today, for instance, the FT did a big article on how the Saudis were going to bring, I think, 70% of what they had back online, not in terms of production, but so, we talked before about the Saudis have the east-west pipeline, which means from the eastern oil-rich province of Syria, of Saudi Arabia, which is on the Persian Gulf. The pipeline crosses Saudi Arabia horizontally and leads to the Red Sea. So technically, the Saudis have the ability to, I think that pipeline's maximum capacity is about 5 million barrels per day. But I think it was already running at some significant capacity. So how much more they could put in there is unknown to all of us. But here's what's interesting. If they tried to do that, and then the Yemenis stepped in and stopped, at the Bab al-Mandab or hit ships that were taking, like, let's say, Israeli ships or American ships or British ships that were trying to get the Saudi oil through the pipeline, that would add, again, there are many, many cards that this axis has not played yet, and Iran. And so I can't find a scenario in which they don't have plenty more levers yet to use.
I mean, I think, and we'll probably get into the main discussion of today, but I think it's very clear, first of all, that Iran is dictating the pace of this war, that Iran, they've already been very outward with these comments. They've been saying, we are going to say when this war ends, not you. Today, Pete Hegseth, the war bro himself, said that we're going to see the most intense attacks inside Iran since the start of the war. My read of this is this could actually open the door for Donald Trump to claim victory, like he did in the Red Sea last year. As you said, Charmaine, he just kind of caught and run, claimed victory, said that Ansar Allah had asked for a ceasefire when absolutely none of that was true. He could, try to manufacture something similar, try to push for a ceasefire, because among the many comments that he made yesterday, there was also this report from the Al Jazeera bureau chief in Tehran, who said that Steve Witkoff had been trying to contact Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi seeking to initiate talks for a ceasefire, and the Iranians are essentially, completely, this is a non-starter. In particular, in the National Security Council, there's not even a mention of a possibility of a truce. And then, of course, this all comes under the umbrella of what Donald Trump said yesterday, which was just a litany of comments, one more absurd than the last one, in which he first of all says, the war's almost over. The war's nearly over. It might last for a few more days, but it's essentially, we won. The Iranians are done. They have nothing left. Then he said, my favorite quote of this year so far, we've already won, but we haven't won enough. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. Then, among other things, he blamed the Iranians for the attack on the schoolgirls massacre on the Minab school, which was, there's plenty of evidence that it was a U.S. Tomahawk missile. He essentially alleges that the Iranians apparently got a hold of a Tomahawk missile. He also made these comments. Before I let you guys go on, first of all, these comments were mainly to control markets, to control the oil price, because after these comments of having already won the war, the prices went down, right? They hit $120 a barrel earlier in the day. By closing time, they were hovering around 80 something. Today, they're still around 90. We talked about the G7 reserves yesterday on top of now Donald Trump's comments, which kind of appeased, right, the markets. Then also, secondly, I think it's just kind of setting the stage, right, for what would be a U.S. pullout from this very unsuccessful war. Not that they even had many objectives, but if anything, what they have achieved is to expose how vulnerable their defenses really are. Iran just took out a bunch of, most of the raiders in the region, and now we're hearing that inside Israel, where military censorship is so severe, they are barely getting any warnings. Just a few hours ago, there was a report on Argentinian public television in which a reporter in Tel Aviv is saying, we are here in the bunker, but at no point did we hear an alarm. We only heard the missiles already hitting, so we had to cut and run. The reality on the ground, it's very different than it was just a few days ago. So it does feel like that, right? And the last thing I need to mention is that Donald Trump makes these comments after initiating a phone call with Vladimir Putin to discuss Iran, to discuss Ukraine, like the diplomatic, what do you call it, like the minutes, right, of the call are essentially about that. But it's very interesting because, first of all, this is the first phone call that Donald Trump and Putin have held this year, and it was initiated by Trump as this whole crisis just continues to balloon out of proportion.
Yeah. 1 minute. Okay. So I want to share this for our audience to understand what's happening in Lebanon, and this is exclusive for our audience. Nobody else has this, what I will share now.
So hit that like button, please.
Yeah, hit it. So this is what's the situation in Lebanon currently. Here you see the Litani River. You always hear about Litani River. They want to push Hezbollah north of the Litani River. They want to disarm Hezbollah. And the irony is that the government last month they said that they fully disarmed Hezbollah south of the Litani, and we're entering phase 2 to disarm Hezbollah north of the Litani, which means the rest of Lebanon. So what happened yesterday and what is happening now? First, unfortunately, every single like this icon that shows you that there's an explosion, this means that this village is completely destroyed. There is no standing building in this village. The other one, this one, the exclamation red mark or black mark, means that it's partially destroyed, and this applies to most of the villages or towns bordering Lebanon and the occupation. So what happened yesterday is that this is Khiyam. This is the same exact operation that the Israelis tried to do in 2004. They tried to enter from these two sides. So many clashes occurred here. But currently, according to even the what Hezbollah said, they said that they targeted Israelis that are stationed south of Khiyam, which is either here or here. These maps and all the information is drawn by me by hand. And when you see this green means that this brigade, there's an Israeli brigade that is responsible for this operation. In the last war and in this war, this is the most active brigade in Israel, and they are trying to penetrate Lebanon from here and from here. So currently, most of the bombings that Hezbollah is doing is occurring in this triangle, if you can see it. Here, most of the Israelis are putting their soldiers and equipment to try to invade, and every now and then there's missiles falling here. And currently, according to the news that I read while I am opening this, there is clashes here in Aitarun, in this area, and the Israelis are trying to penetrate from here. So we have now two fronts where the Israelis are trying to penetrate here and here. And of course, unfortunately, there's some points that or locations that Israel is already present in. There's 5 locations in Lebanon spread across the border. And it's worth noting that Hezbollah, 3 days ago, they issued a warning for all the settlers that live in Kiryat Shmona, which is this triangle, and also in Naharaya, which is this area here. There is this is yani the closest we can say big town or city in Israel that is close to the Lebanese border. Hezbollah is targeting this area and this area every now and then. Yani there's no place safe here. And also, let us not to forget that the Israelis issued a warning for most of the villages that are south of the Litani, or for the Israelis, all this area is in the ongoing operation. And of course, Dahieh, we see here, this is the Dahieh, or what's referred to the Beirut southern suburbs. All this area has been evacuated because the Israelis issued a warning more than once to evacuate it. And this is the Beirut International Airport. This is the only functional airport in Lebanon. And as you see, that's why in the videos you see many bombings occurring while airplanes landing. That's why, because Dahieh is surrounded by surrounds the airport. So everybody here currently evacuated. And of course, this didn't stop the Israelis from targeting an area here 2 days ago. And also they targeted an area here next to the Lebanese presidential building. And of course, the president didn't care, didn't say anything 5 days ago. And of course, this is Bekaa. I didn't draw Bekaa. Bekaa is considered bigger than other places. And here, of course, there is a lot of airstrikes, and the Israelis are trying to enter from here. They did airdrops and it failed. Although they killed many people, they made a carpet bombing where they landed, and they killed many people. And this is Damascus. So Damascus is very sad now because Hezbollah confronted an Israeli unit that tried to penetrate from Syria into Lebanon, and they failed to mention this. So this is the current situation in Lebanon. As I said, most of people south of this line, the blue line, which is Al-Litani River, are evacuated, and in Dahieh, and they are pushed in many different places. And according to the ministry, around 770,000 people are displaced. And according to the Israelis, 1 million Lebanese are displaced. And also, last but not least, of course, this is the area that was hit by Hezbollah that we showed. And as I said, it's around 135 kilometers away from the border.
That was a masterclass. Karim. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was amazing. I mean, but yeah, okay. I don't know if Sharmin, if you have any more comments about the situation on the Lebanon border, or if you want to, talk about Donald Trump's phone call with Vladimir Putin and what it may mean.
I think Lebanon's important to discuss because it's a different story from the war between the U.S./Israel and Iran. Again, many of us were confounded at the notion that the Israelis would open a ground war front while they're waging a war against a country they couldn't even, not remotely defeat, right? They came out looking like the losers in June. So why is that? Did the Israelis miscalculate and thought that the Americans would do that job for them and plan this Lebanon invasion and then go ahead with it, even though it didn't look like the right time? Because all it's done is maybe, push the Iranians to consider. I mean, it's not that much. How different, or how would it pull Iran away from its war plans to help Lebanon out? I don't think so, because the target banks are the same in Israel, taking out their military capacity, taking out their ability to maybe launch fighter jets, to launch missiles, to see what's going on the Lebanese border, eyes and ears surveillance, maybe to target airstrips where Americans and Europeans are sending Israel ammo to wage its war in Lebanon. I mean, it just seems like it's part of the possibilities within Iran's realm now, of waging war. So I haven't figured that out yet. Okay. But I do want to show just, we're talking about how the Israelis and Americans are hitting Iran. I do want to show, Karim, if you could go to the last thing I posted in the group, the tweet. It is so the Iranians, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, mass texted Israel or Israelis last night. Okay, mass texted them saying, quote, "The last U.S. radar systems in the region have been destroyed. Your government leaders are lying to you. Leave the country. Missiles are on their way. No shelter can provide safety." From the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. So, there's a lot happening. Again, it just defies logic that the Israelis are opening up this Lebanese front. Again, I think they thought it would be quite easy, and then it would be leverage in hand when they needed to negotiate the end of the war with Iran. But Iran cannot allow Israel to retain that leverage. Do you know what I mean? It's like Hamas on October 7th wanted to take Israeli soldiers as hostages in order to negotiate the release of thousands of Palestinians held captive by the Israelis and mistreated over years, right? You can't wage a successful war and then allow the enemy to hold a dear friend hostage, So, I mean, all of these are unclear yet. I mean, let's see how...
What is that?
Let's see how the Israelis wage this so-called land war. Let's see if they get a backlash they didn't expect. More to come on that front, I guess. What is that?
What is this, Karim?
No, but bombing in Iran, a huge bombing that occurred in Iran. Regarding what Sharmin said, also the plan was really to topple the Iranians.
Can you take the video off, please?
Okay. So Netanyahu today just said that he gave two statements, and I think they are very important because this applies to their mentality and what they are still trying to do and what they believe. He said, "Our goal is to push the Iranian people towards dismantling the dictatorship, and ultimately this is related to them." So the Israelis till now, they are still calling upon the Iranians to topple the government, and also he adds and say we are breaking the backbone of the Iranian regime, but in the end it depends on the Iranian people to overthrow them. So
none of these statements are important in my view. It's just repetition. It's absolute repetition, and I don't think we should give the man oxygen.
And now he's just talking to the diaspora. Because who in Iran is listening to him?
None of the people in diaspora are going to go back and fight in anything. Okay,
Exactly.
they'd miss their Starbucks. Okay, let's be honest. That's what these people are. So I think let's hop forward to Trump's statements, because those are wildly fluctuating. Okay, he wants to talk to Iran. He's won. Iran has no more missiles left, and then ignoring the missiles that are coming from everywhere.
Last week they said that
But
we're out of launchers.
we can't ignore what Netanyahu is saying. He's the leader of the war, Sharmin. We have to let our audience.
There's nothing new in what he said. Zero. That's all I'm saying.
No, the new thing is they are still having the same plan, which is very important. They are still relying on the internal affairs of Iran to win the war or to create a victory
good.
or to end the war. So, yeah.
That's good.
It's pretty obvious, yeah. It's pretty obvious that what they want right now is a pause. They want to hit the pause button and then come back later. When they have a Iran weekend, they can attack again. They can try their little, color revolution stuff again. That's why he keeps repeating the same speech.
And this is an important question. Let's imagine a lot of global pressure to push Iran to stop the war. Okay, that's fine. U.S. military bases will temporarily, the thing is, whatever the Americans promise, they lie. Whatever the Israelis promise, they lie. I don't think Iran can stop this war unless it becomes crystal clear that there will be no U.S. military presence in the Persian Gulf. And I'll tell you one way to establish that, so that it doesn't look like Iran twisted the arms of Persian Gulf countries. It is this sort of like flow of Persian Gulf leaders and the Americans and others to either the Russians or the Chinese to find a face-saving exit, right? And in it, the Russians and the Chinese which structured a rapprochement between the Saudis and Iranians that didn't seem possible to others, right? They did it. And it held. It had legs and it grew. That relationship grew until, of course, 10 days ago. So I think the Chinese and the Russians, who have their own plans that they've proposed over the last few years about security architectures in the Persian Gulf, led entirely by littoral states that did not require any foreign bases, that excluded the inclusion of foreign military bases and foreign militaries in this equation, they could hammer out a very well negotiated win-win strategic architecture. They could probably do it in 24 hours. I'm saying that because they already had these plans, right? That would be win-wins for the Gulf countries. Now, you might have some of these Gulf countries. Most of them have realized that the U.S. military can offer no security guarantees for these countries. And these same people realize that, in fact, the U.S. military being there creates immense vulnerability to these states, correct?
Incorrect.
Okay, that's fine. Let me finish and then you could get to them. And then you have Qatar today that has said that they are going to stick with the American whatever plan. But these are positions, like I said, one side seems to have an awful lot of leverage in the sense that they haven't brought out all their tools. And I just do think, because Gulf countries are going to the Chinese and the Russians, that those guys, those major players can step in and to hash out a ceasefire arrangement between the Gulf and Iran, right? Before they do anything with the Americans and Iran. Do you see what I mean? These are smart players. They play chess. They play Sun Tzu. They don't mess around, right? I think
who are smart? Who are the
Russians
smart?
and Chinese. I'm saying they play.
Clearly, they are
political.
No.
What do you think, Karim? Why do you say Sharmin was incorrect?
First, the statements that came out from the Gulf say it's very clear that they are sticking to the Americans and they will not shift their vision. Unfortunately, it's bad for them. I don't really care. The Qataris said that they will stick to the Americans and the Emiratis too, and also Saudi Arabia. As we talked yesterday, they said they will increase their output because of what's happening. That's also a thing. Bahrain now, if you take a picture, you will be hanged or imprisoned for life. It depends if you are a Bahraini or no. That's one, and it depends, of course. If you are a British citizen and took a photo, they will send you back to the UK. But if you are a Pakistani or Indian, they will kill you inside their country because you took a picture. That's also a thing, and this also applies to Kuwait. But they didn't say they will prosecute you, unalive you. They said that they will jail you. This means that nothing changed in these countries till now, and also the only country that showed that they are flexible is Oman. Oman is somehow still being neutral in this war, and the things that are coming out from the Gulf countries against Oman tells us that the Gulf countries are still united against Iran with the United States, except Oman. That's one. And why clearly they are not strategic players, China and Russia. Till now, I didn't see anything from them. And the logic say that after Iran, for instance, if Iran lost, the next thing the Israelis will try, number one, let's talk about the Israelis, is to diminish the power or to create chaos in Turkey and in Pakistan, because for them they don't want a Muslim country having a nuclear weapon. For them, how they think currently, if Pakistan is, for instance, controlled by the United States, what if another leader comes after 5 years? That's how the Israelis think. They want to weaken all the Arab states, and even Egypt now, they are afraid, but the train has passed, they can't do anything. And also, it was clear from the Israelis that the next target is Turkey. They want to weaken Turkey because they don't want a strong Muslim country. That's about the Israelis. Now we go to the Americans. The Americans said, and it was very clear in the new doctrine, that their focus is on China. First, they attacked Venezuela, and they claimed that they took the oil, but till now, there is no news. We don't know what's really happening in Venezuela, at least in the Arabic or English news. Maybe in Latin American news, maybe you can tell us more, Esteban, later on. But for me, we don't know really what's happening. And according to the Americans, they took the oil that is around 10 to 15% that China uses. And in their new doctrine or new security doctrine that they published at the end of the past year, and Trump, of course, approved it. They said that we have Venezuela and we have Iran. Iran supplies around 30% of oil to China, and by taking over these both countries, and by only calling our friends in the Gulf, we would halt around 75% of the oil going to China. And China did nothing. And according to the Americans, because now we are talking about the Americans, China is next. If Iran falls, China will be next, and Chinese didn't do anything. And if Iran falls, according to Israel, Turkey and Pakistan is next.
I need to stop you, Karim, because there's something wrong with your argument here, and that is China is doing nothing. No, China is doing exactly what China has been doing. They just announced their latest 5-year plan, which is essentially they're fighting a war that the United States hasn't even thought about, and that is the technological war. Because in their new 5-year plan, the Chinese are essentially saying by 2027 we want to have like 70% of the workforce be implemented with AI. We are talking about robotics. They're talking about these things that the US is so not even far behind. They're not even in the same realm at this point. The US still just focused on war, bloodshed, bombs, ships that have like terrible plumbing, and our sailors can go to the bathroom, stuff like that. Like that's the United States. It's the bubble, right, of the AI. All of the AI, like the NVIDIA boss, the OpenAI boss, they have all said at one time or another, Palantir boss have said, China is kind of way far ahead of us in this, like in the AI race, in the tech race, they are way far ahead. Donald Trump is thinking about November, and then he's thinking about 2020. When is the next election in the US? 2028? More than that, there's no thought, there's no plan, there's nothing, absolutely nothing. On the other hand, the Chinese are actually doing what they always do, which is think in 5-year terms. We're going to implement this, we're going to reach these goals, we're going to live it. I'm not going to go into all of that because I actually
I have two comments and that's it. First, just to more evidence of what I said about the Gulf countries. A few hours ago, which is 2.5 hours ago, Zelensky said that Ukraine has sent its expert regarding drones to to defense Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Sharmin, I know you think Ukraine is not that good of a country. Ukraine is the second best country in the world in countering and manufacturing drones. That's one. Second, about AI and China.
Ukraine's waging an existential war. Okay, listen, I gotta say something.
I didn't finish. I will
No,
finish.
no.
I will finish. I will finish, Sharmin. And regarding the AI and this stuff, okay, AI needs a lot of energy, and that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about anything else.
My dude, Karim,
yeah, if you don't have energy, you can't put on
they are
Correct,
leading the
Karim,
world in solar
correct.
panels,
That's the
Karim.
only-
Like they are literally
that's the
installing
only-
no. Solar panels, they does nothing.
Karim,
No.
that's the only
No.
Karim,
You what? Yes.
please, you said that, okay? Karim, you said the only right thing you said is that, okay? China needs energy. You think they're just going to sit back and watch what's happening in the Persian Gulf?
That's what they are doing.
Karim, okay?
It's clear, Sharif. I'm
Karim,
lying. Okay, I will add the argument, but it's clear. Our audience will know what's.
You've got to stop with the slogans. No, because I will then make the counter argument, and then you throw the same slogan out. Don't do that. It's very antagonizing, please. All right. What I want to say is among China's top foreign policy priorities, all right, because domestic policy is China's priority, hands down, all right, is access to energy to keep its economic machinery going, and the Belt and Road Initiative, okay, which runs through Iran and runs through Pakistan, all right, and expects to have access to Central Asia. The Chinese will appreciate Iran being next in line. The Russians came online with the Ukraine war, in front of the Americans. The Iranians next. The Chinese know well that they're next. If you think the uber planning, smart Chinese are going to sit back and let these two allies be felled so that Washington has an open road to Beijing, I'm sorry that you believe the headlines of the Persian Gulf Arab states. I really am. Trump has given us Hegseth has given
I
us.
never. No, Sharmin. You accused me of something.
Wait.
No. I will not. I will not let you continue, Sharmin. I never read hotlines from Gulf states. I only, Sharmin. Please, I have to defend yourself. You throw something on me that is incorrect. I just no, Sharmin. I will not let you. I have to make clear for our audience. I never read these headlines. All what I do and our team does, we read official statements and we read official what the official says, and I don't care about analysis. I have my own brain to analyze, and that's what I am doing.
So the statements that these countries have said, if you think that means anything over the fact that in no time these countries that import food, all right, they export energy, they import food. You have seen Dubai supermarkets, shelves empty. You've seen people making a rush for the supermarket. You think, this is what I'm saying, there are so many pressure levers that have not been implemented yet. And the Iranians are not going to back down on this. They're not going to have an arrangement where this war is over and the Americans can reestablish them in these countries. That is a failed war. That is an Iranian loss, okay? So if they've gone in head first, okay, with all guns blazing, with a plan that they've planned for 40 years and updated incrementally, right? They know that if they go into this kind of existential war, they have to leave with several wins. One clear win would be that this could never happen again, unlike what happened in June. And this could never happen again only if there were no US abilities to launch from neighboring countries. All right, that will not be allowed. So what I'm saying the Russians and Chinese can do, for instance, of course, Iran can do it directly with Persian Gulf states, but it would be much more palatable for Arab countries of the Persian Gulf to sit with Beijing and Moscow and say, you know what, we want a secure region. Let's do a secure region with, very, very carefully hammered out plan. Everyone has to stick to their, to what they've said. Because that's what happened when the Chinese brokered an Iranian Saudi rapprochement. It's exactly what happened. They stuck with what they promised because you had an honest broker and a mediator. You never have that with U.S. plans. So before the Iran can accept a ceasefire agreement with the Americans, they have to get the Gulf countries signed on to promising not to. It doesn't matter what Qatar's statements are or Saudi. I'm saying as time ticks, the situation for these countries worsen in every single aspect. I mean, soon, if the bombing continues in the Gulf states, what is it? 11 million foreigners live in the UAE and only 1 point something million Emiratis.
I think 9 out of 10, yeah.
They're not going to stick around. Guess who's going to run anything in the Emirates? So as long as the war continues, Iran's leverage builds. The pressure points it can apply on these neighbors just by doing nothing more than it already is are exacerbated. And these guys will possibly, and this would be an ideal situation for Iran, I don't know if it'll happen, but ideally they would be able to split the allies and start making deals with these individually, right? But I'm saying to be brokered by Moscow or Beijing would be a much more desirable thing for the Gulf countries than to be doing the deal directly with Iran, which the Americans will try to sabotage. They can't do it as much if the Russians and the Chinese are involved, which brings us to our point. Trump making his first phone call. He made the phone call to Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday, right? Monday.
Yeah.
Correct. It lasted about an hour, the phone call. And from what we know, they discussed the Iran war situation and they discussed Ukraine, though I don't know how much they went into that. There is a possibility that Trump was like, well, Putin's not going to hear me on Iran. Let me try to get a deal out of Ukraine so I can just run around and say, hey, I got another win. I got another peace deal. Do you know what I mean? But I suspect that this call was all about the war with Iran because these two men had not spoken, as far as we know, since last December. So 2.5 months. Yeah. And according to some reports, is that so Putin's foreign policy advisor, Yuri Ushakov, told Russian reporters that Putin presented Trump with several proposals for ending the war with Iran. Okay. Now, we don't know anything about what these proposals are. I would imagine that Trump probably didn't like any of them. But I would imagine that while that is going on and the Arab ambassadors of the GCC are meeting with Lavrov, this was a crazy video. Karim, I asked you to see if you could find it. I guess you didn't, but let me just sort of try to sum it up. So Arab ambassadors, GCC ambassadors are sitting with Lavrov, and this is all done in Russian with Russian translators. And they're saying, help, you're a strategic ally for Iran. Can you help put a stop to all this and stuff? And Lavrov goes, did you even condemn the US and Israeli aggression on Iran? Did you even offer condolences for 170 schoolgirls who were killed in Iran? That was his tone. I can tell you, these people were probably stunned at that. He was very realistic. It's not, so if Lavrov's talking this way, I imagine Putin delivered some truths and some realities to Trump, and any of the scenarios he would have painted, Trump wouldn't have liked. I don't know if Trump will be able to achieve an exit from this, but Trump could just walk away. That is an option. In the meantime, as long as U.S. military bases and ammunition and capabilities are in the Persian Gulf states, the Iranians are not going to stop this, right?
Guys,
so a ceasefire has to be made between Iran and its neighbors, and that's something that doesn't need the U.S. You see what I mean?
I want to mention a couple of things, first of all. First, we have about 660 likes and close to 1,000 people watching. Today, we've just had the most heated debate ever in this podcast. Show us some love. Come on. And I just want to mention a couple of things, actually, because I didn't want to, take part in the shouting match about China in particular. But it's like just a reminders for people, right? Like China just recently signed this agreement for the power of Siberia too, right? You're talking about I think 50 billion cubic meters of gas that will be transferred from Russia to China. When we're talking about energy, if China needs energy for AI, they have that. They have the the solar panels, we generate last year generated about 12% of the total consumption in the country, which is the most populous country on earth, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. At the same time, they have a monopoly on 90% on the processing of rare earth minerals that are used for the interceptors that the US is running out of in West Asia. And there's actually today, the South Korean president was essentially up in arms saying the US is moving Patriot missile batteries out of the Korean Peninsula to take to the US, essentially leaving a hole in the Pacific theater, and there's nothing we can do about it. This is what
the US, taking to the US or to Israel?
To West Asia, of course, to protect Israel. They are also, the Chinese essentially have this monopoly on the components for the F-35, for the, their most advanced weaponry, etc. So, we can't just sweep away that because of the situation of what is happening now. The United States is not ready for the war of the future, right? The war that they have been preparing, be it Democrat, be it Republican, they are simply not ready. They are fighting currently a war of choice in the name of Israel that they thought was going to go easy. You mentioned Venezuela earlier, Karim. They did think this was going to end like Venezuela. And what's happening in Venezuela right now? Do you have a government that is essentially fighting for survival? You have a government that has a weapon pointed to its head and is saying yes to everything that comes from the White House while internally still trying to carry out their own revolutionary progress. I was going to actually tell you guys, in my mind, what I think is we're going to see happen once this war inevitably comes to an end is, first of all, Israel is going to continue to its war in Lebanon, trying to use Lebanon as a punching bag. And then Donald Trump is going to come back to the American continent because his doctrine, the doctrine you brought up, Karim, earlier, first and foremost says, secure the Western Hemisphere, America for the Americans. And that means taking control from north to south, from Greenland all the way to the Patagonia in Chile and Argentina. And the first target is going to be Cuba. Cuba is going to pay the price of the loss that Iran is handing right now to the US. But like I said, the United States does not have a long-term plan. They only have the idea that they will always be the superpower, the hegemon, the supremacist that will, dictate what everyone does. While on the other end, you have another superpower that is so far ahead that the US cannot even begin to comprehend how badly they will be beat in an actual battle with the Chinese. The Chinese can build 200 battleships for every single one that the US currently has the capacity to build. So this is, many people said at the beginning of this war, this is kind of the end of Trump, and it's also the end of the US empire. Not that it's not going to be bloody, or not that it's not going to take a lot of effort, but it's inevitable. He has picked a fight he shouldn't have picked. That's my point.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's happening more importantly, and I said this from the beginning, this is honestly the first time I've ever seen the US wage a war that it hasn't set the groundwork for domestically among Americans, where they get them all, sort of pumped up for war. And so it's really impacting things for him there. In 11 days, he's just running around like a chicken without his head. It's very clear Americans are commenting that nobody knows what they're saying. Everyone's saying different things. Is it regime change? Is Iran going to negotiate? Okay, Iran's
not going to negotiate.
No. So I think what's happened is a very, very fast collapse of U.S. credibility. I mean, it keeps happening, right?
Remember what the Gulf countries were doing when Biden was in power? They were stepping all over him. After this war, what's to say that Donald Trump's not going to feel the same fate?
Yeah, I mean, Trump's problem isn't with the Gulf countries. Trump's problem is really with everyone. He has 2 more years after these midterms. I commented on this. Was it yesterday as well? I don't remember. Time just flies. Somebody was saying there's 3 M's, and I keep forgetting them.
I saw that.
Midterms, munitions.
Munitions, and I saw it. I know what you're talking about.
And something else, and basically those are true. I mean, it's so happens they all start with an M. But getting munitions into theater, getting enough munitions, right? As far as we know, we don't know. Iran seems to have planned to have enough munitions and have scattered their munitions and their launch pads and their chain of command so far across the country so that they can keep going no matter what's taken out, correct? And then they also more likely know better than we do whether the Russians or the Chinese, the North Koreans, you don't know, would provide even more backup of these things, fast, inexpensive, already like in plan, whereas the Americans are now going to their defense manufacturers and saying, we need those things that take 2 years in 5 months. What do you mean 5 months? It doesn't matter. It doesn't work for this particular battlefield. I just think trust in Trump has diminished overnight so quickly. He had gotten some clout on the global stage because of his bullying and the fact that even his staunchest allies were so deferential to him, and all his cabinet members were like, "You're so great, Mr. President." You remember those big, the press would record these cabinet meetings, and they all one by one would go around and say why Trump is so great. That I think is over, So, but the perception is 100% of politics.
He achieved one thing. I'll give you that. I'll give you one thing he achieved. He got people to stop talking about the Epstein files, at least for a while.
Yeah, but don't forget, this is Operation Epstein Fury. So he
don't say that. The ADL apparently is so upset that people are calling it that.
But that's the thing. It's the war is called Epstein Fury now. Like, it hasn't gone away. It's not going away.
That's in the lexicon.
I don't know if you heard Hillary Clinton testify. That was going around. Americans are not missing this. Their eyes are not on this war all the time. I think they're just watching how everything's falling apart. All we ever hear from Americans is like affordability is like nil. Nothing. People are struggling to put food on the table. It's a very bad time when he's asking Congress for $50 billion not to pay, medical care for Americans or put food on their table or to make sure their schools are safe, but to just buy bombs for Israel.
Yeah.
So I want to answer some of our audience on the chat. I think there is many misinformation online regarding China. So China is the largest oil importer in the world. And it imports around 17 million barrels of oil a day. And also it imports its oil 20% from Russia, 14% from Saudi Arabia, and according to IEA, it imports 12% from Iran. So many people are saying they have wind energy. Wind energy is a joke. Wind energy will not support energy for a factory. It can light up a couple thousands of rural areas, houses. Sharmeen, I prefer nothing.
No, but can I just ask you, that China has the most advanced electricity system that it's created. Like nobody has.
So what, Sharmeen?
No, but
it imports 25.
They're using everything, including solar panels, which are everywhere.
Sharmeen, whatever they have
in the country, and then hydroelectric energy.
So what?
Karim, even the Americans.
Whatever you say, Sharmeen, the fact is, even if they have aliens and the future technology, the fact is that you have 40% of their oil of their energy is from 3 countries: Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. If the Americans were able in a phone call and they can to hold 15% of their imported energy from Saudi Arabia and to maintain this war for longer more, or to hit ships that are heading from Iran to China can do nothing. And that's what my argument is. I'm not saying Iran will lose.
Okay, let's not even. It's not.
It's facts, numbers.
I don't think it's a fact.
I only see
your
numbers.
opinion is not a fact.
It's not a
fact.
Numbers, yeah, but numbers are fact. Numbers. I know many people.
The way you string them together is not a fact.
Let me continue. I didn't interrupt anybody. Many. I want to say to my audience. There's many people going online, or they hope that China and Russia will do anything for Iran. Currently, there is zero evidence, and
not
there
gonna
is
happen.
zero political evidence that these two countries are doing anything. And why I am saying that? Because I had this will undermine what Iran is doing. Because if Iran did a successful information operation, they are saying, "Oh, Russia provided
But Karim,
the information."
sorry to
Oh
cut
no,
you off.
China provided the
Karim.
information. No, Iran is totally
Karim, but they
alone
are
till
already
now.
saying that. They are already
Who is saying that?
The government, they've been saying that that they report in these
yesterday,
places throughout the world.
the U.S. intelligence said that there is zero evidence that Russia is helping Iran. Why shouldn't I believe them? And they are all enemies. Do you think that if there was an evidence,
you want, and
I want to ask our audience and talk whatever you want. Do you think if there is one evidence from the United States that China is helping Iran, they will shut up? It will be the number one news across the whole world.
But
Karim?
it was like 5 days ago. Like, have you missed the headlines, Karim? It was reported.
Maybe because I don't read the Gulf countries' headlines.
So you don't have to
that really stung, huh?
You don't have to have a zero-sum attitude in which for Iran to be doing well on its own, Russia and China have to be entirely out of the picture. These are alliances.
I need one evidence. It's all analysis from journalists.
Don't interrupt, please. 1 second. Let me just say this. You don't say the same when it's Hezbollah or Ansar Allah or Hamas or the Iraqi resistance. So I don't know what your attitude is towards Russia and China particularly. It's always been my contention that those countries, like all countries do and should do, is put their interests ahead of all others. In this case, it is clearly in China's interest, even more than in Russia, to stop this happening. Iran hits 2 if it's foreign policy sweet spots, 2 if it's top 3. With Russia, let's say there's competition on the energy sales front. Okay, so Russia doesn't care. But what did Iran deliver in 11 days for Russia? Sanctions are likely oil sanctions are going to come off of Russia. Russia suddenly has leverage with India. They're going to charge India more because
I'm talking about China. Give me evidence that China is helping Iran.
I don't have to.
Because they don't exist.
No, Karim.
Simple.
All these 3 countries have always operated on the basis of strategic ambiguity, not closing doors to anything, not isolating anyone. I mean, with Iran, the exception is Israel, right? But none of the other countries do that. And yet you think because China does a port with Israel, they're anti-Iran, or that because Russia spoke to the what's it called, the Lubavitch or whatever, Chabad, whatever, that he's anti-Iran secretly. That's not how it works. These countries talk to everyone and they hold their cards close to their chest. And that's what gives them an advantage. If you think if Trump knew what was in Xi Jinping's mind or Vladimir Putin's mind, okay, he would even dare to approach them? No, it's great that they're ambiguous. Anyways, I think we should move on because there were other questions that before we started our disagreement here. And
Karim, there's a few super chats too that we should.
People were asking about Netanyahu's brother and Ben Gvir. We know nothing of the sort.
I know they hit Ben Gvir's home, and Karim will correct me if I'm wrong.
We have a big super chat. Yeah, it says let Karim finish. So let me finish. I want to say something. What I mean by what I am saying, Western they have a real alliance. Yes. Germany they sent 1,000 ton of military equipment to Israel. This is a fact. We can see it. But Canada said they are willing to put boots on the ground if the United States wants. Australia said the same, and they sent weapons and say that they sent interceptors to the UAE. You have of course the alliance between Israel and America is obvious, and the Gulf countries. This is an alliance. The UK they said they want to send ships to the region, and Trump, because he was very not good with the UK, they said not, don't send. And the French said they are sending their helicopter aircraft, whatever helicopter carrier. This is an alliance. These countries are helping Israel and the United States. There is no evidence that China and Russia is doing anything for Iran.
There's no evidence that these countries are going to put boots on the ground anywhere. There's a lot to be said about Western statements that never happen, just like Western constructs that never happen. I'm not sure why you're not skeptical about these things, but you're skeptical about the only players, global players on the world stage that actually want international law to survive. So anyways, I really want to end this because our viewers can have their opinions and they've listened to ours and go back to clearing up the thing about Netanyahu and stuff, because I was up searching for any verification of this because obviously it would feel good, right? We have no
bombed some residences, right? They hit some residences.
Yeah, I'm not even sure the pictures of the residents they showed was Ben Gavir's. Like there was very little information to go off of.
We do know that Smotrich's son got injured in the north.
Yeah, that did happen. I sense that was verified, but I don't even know that.
No, yes. So there is no news from the Israelis regarding all the questions that you were answering or in the chat. The only evidence is that the son of Smotrich, after less than 24 hours, he was injured in Lebanon. In the south, there was a sharpener that entered from his back and penetrated his torso and entered to his kidney. Liver, and they said the last time I checked yesterday at night, they said that he is still in the hospital, but he will survive. That's what was said. And of course, Smotrich went to the public and said, there is a miracle that I want to talk to you about, and my son is blah, blah, blah. So that's what is confirmed from the Israelis.
We have a new super chat, Karim, that you're going to love. You're going to love this one. And I want
to oh my God.
We have another one too.
Thank you. FHU, $100. Thank you, Karim. You need a vacation. Thank you.
Oh my God.
For a few months. One day is good.
Oh, we got another one too.
We got a few. I wanna mention something.
I support Sharmi's point of view.
That's the one actually.
It's okay.
That's the one I meant that you were gonna love. I didn't see the other one.
And then another neutral one, which was just a donation from MS579. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thoughts about what you said, Karim, but I don't want us to go too much longer. In particular about the alliance. About the alliance, you said it. I agree with you completely. One side, they work like an alliance, but they work like an alliance in the name of one particular topic. It's not like they work as an alliance in many different things. It's just like when it comes to defending Israel, they all act in the same way, and I feel like that's actually what's completely different on the other side. And I also don't think we don't have any evidence that Russia or Iran have been aiding China. We also don't have any evidence that they haven't been helping China in whichever way, Iran, in whichever way that may be. That's all I wanted to add to that. But there's one more thing that happened today that is very important, guys, and I need to mention it. Today, the Canadian police, the Toronto police and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, I cannot believe they're actually called that, announced a national security incident after two unknown assailants apparently opened fire on the U.S. consulate in Toronto. This is pretty major that they're calling it a national security incident, and it comes on the heels of two attacks over the weekend on synagogues that were also reported to have been shooting attacks. There is a very clear attempt here to I'm not really going to get into hypotheticals here because I think that is a pretty dangerous situation that speaks for itself, but it's kind of like they see that the reality that they have built is kind of falling apart, and I feel like we're going to be seeing more of this. I wouldn't imagine anyone who is against the war getting the idea to go and open fire on the U.S. consulate or like on synagogues. That's at least my perspective. This feels a lot more like trying to change the conversation once again.
100% of false flags, diverting attention, making it seem that Iran, which is really busy, defending its territory, would, pop up in Western countries, and hit targets like that. I mean, total Israeli job trying to change the perception, right? Because they are probably stunned out of their mind that there's so much public support for Iran in this and so much public antagonism towards the U.S.'s, and I'm talking about American public opinion, Western. One last thing, because we have to, close up tonight. Just something that was I found so amusing that the Iranians said any country who ousts the American ambassador and consulate is welcome to ship through the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know. I feel like
Beautiful.
that was like peak comic relief, but it was probably meant with a serious intent too. So what do you say?
I would believe it, actually. Like if they do it, probably you will see some ships crossing the Strait of Hormuz. That would be a very interesting experiment. But of course, imagine the cost of doing that, diplomatically and etc. But guys, I think we have reached the end of today's episode. What a heated episode! I saw many comments saying this was the best episode so far. Well, thank you so much.
Oh my God, y'all are too used to American reality TV.
Of the yelling over each other. Yeah. So guys, please make sure to hit that like button if you haven't yet, to share this, especially, if you loved it, make sure to share it, get this video out to more people, to subscribe to our channel. After this stream is done, please make sure to leave a comment underneath. That also really helps tell the YouTube algorithm to get this video out to more viewers. If you can become a member on our YouTube, please consider doing that. But of course, consider becoming a Patreon for as little as $5 a month. You can help the Cradle continue to do the job that we do here, and to support independent journalism, which is truly vital in these times. We want to thank you for being here. We want to send a special thanks, of course, to everyone who's already become a patron. We have a new super chat. I am loving the generosity, by the way, over the past few days. You guys really warm my heart. Thank you to Karim. Thank you to Charmaine as well. And we will see you tomorrow.
Yeah, sorry for our super chat. I didn't understand it. Can you use Pakistan? Pakistan. Sorry,
Pakistan basis.
No, sorry, Pakistan basis.
Why we not tell Afghan news? We have there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Maybe next time, if there's news, we will comment about the Pakistan stance, and maybe Charmaine knows more about me, more than me about Pakistan. She can comment next. So thank you all, and thank you, of course, for our Patreons and for the chat that is currently in our Patreon. Many people don't know, but there's a chat where you Patreons also talk to each other. And usually I go there and they ask about me or Charmaine. Now you ignore us, you talk to one another, which is very nice. I'm happy to see that, and hopefully see you all tomorrow.
And I think on Friday we're going to answer questions from Patreon. So if you have any questions, send them in ASAP. So on Friday we can answer them in our Patreons only Q&A session. Thank you.
Bye. Missiles were fired from Lebanon into Israel.
He can't stop. He won't stop.
West Asia is always on the map, but rarely in its own voice. This region has been narrated by others for far too long. That's why the Cradle exists, to report from the region, not to speak over it.
Together, the United States
to tell stories with depth, precision, and no editorial leash. Because West Asia is more than just a theater of war. It's the corridor between continents, the energy artery of the world, the cradle of civilization. We don't take government orders. We don't serve corporate boards. We serve clarity, rarity, and rawness, no matter the risk. So if you believe this region deserves better than spin, support the people doing the legwork. Donate. Keep the Cradle independent.